These are the landscapes and communities of Lakota reservations in South Dakota. In August 2011, U.S. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan made a historic trip to the Rosebud Reservation for a roundtable where South Dakota leaders discussed Indian education issues. Duncan gave a commencement address at the Sinte Gleshka University graduation. He spent time listening to South Dakotans.
South Dakota made an Indian country.
These people addressed a matter of obvious importance to them, the state of their schools.
We get a lot of teachers, we train them well, we give them a lot of staff development, and then they leave us.
And I really feel strongly about our language, how it's really being lost.
Tribes rightfully can criticize the federal government because the way the federal government prioritizes Indian education is problematic, and the way that at the Department of Interior they deal with rocks and fish and national forests. And under all of that, they have Indian Affairs. And in Indian Affairs, you have gaming and economic development and public safety. And then under that is Indian education.
Retaining teachers, retaining Lakota language and culture, making certain that increased investment is guaranteed for Indian country schools. These are three recurring themes when education is discussed in depth here.
There's one important aspect for that teacher-student relationship, and that's longevity.
Longevity. Programs like Teach for America bring outstanding teachers to Indian country. But what does it take to keep them long-term? A means of peer support is vital.
A group of people who have a vision for what's possible and the positive potential that a school can achieve and a group of people can achieve together.
And a group who understands intimately the daily challenges.
It is really hard. You go to students' funerals, you see things happen that you just never wanted to see happen. You have students end up in jail all the time. The emotional toll that you add that to how hard it is to learn to teach.
We've had teachers that have stressed out. New teachers coming right out of college that were not prepared for the actual teaching under No Child Left Behind.
Along with peer support are other ideas for building communities of teachers who stay.
Why don't we start attracting teachers that have 15 to 20 years experience in the teaching arena? And what you do is say, if you commit yourself to at least 5 years in a rural or Indian school setting, we'll take your retirement or your IRA and we'll make it federal and state tax-free, making these schools destinations and not just stopovers.
Most ideas, though, involve developing teachers who already have Indian country roots. Local tribal universities built in recent decades make that more and more achievable.
What's really important for us to do is to do what we can to try to build from within, train teachers who are from those areas so that they understand the culture, they understand the language, they understand what's important for those students.
When outsiders interpret reservation life, it's easy for them to find high-achieving students.
I've never done drugs. I've never drank. And I want to go out in the world and see what it is.
And it is precisely here that outsiders typically steer the story wrong, assuming that once a high-achieving young person sees the rest of the world, he or she will never return to the reservation. In fact, many are motivated to come back home and make a difference, Grace among them.
I would like to teach art. And most kids like to express themselves. That's just kind of how it's always been around here. You see kids drawing or graffiti or something.
If her teaching plans come to fruition, she'll understand her students well.
I mean, there are a handful of students that are actually really good at academics. But then the other half is in the darkness still.
For teachers who stay, the real payoff is watching their students grow as they broaden their experiences and see fresh opportunities.
Lack of other experiences other than, going to winter or Valentine. That's our 30-mile radius from us. We just don't have a lot of those background experiences that kids need to come to school.
We have kids that are highly intelligent. It's an opportunity to learn that they haven't had the opportunity at home, and some of the teachers talked about outside experiences.
I mean, these kids out here in St. Francis and Kyle, Mission, wherever you want to talk about it, it's not them. They're some of the toughest, most intelligent, creative people I've ever met in my life. And what we have to do is just figure out a way as adults to allow that to come through.
We've got Teach for America. Teacher quality is really important. If I could do two other things, it's like Administrate for America and Counsel for America. You put those three things together, you're all on the same page, you have a vision, like you have a transformative school in a setting like this.
I think the students in the elementary school so many times don't see themselves in the curricula. They don't see the relevance to the things that they're learning because it isn't about them or who they are. I think that carries itself through to the high schools, and there a whole different set of problems occur. Many are young parents and again don't find education to be relevant.
As bad as it is for multiple generations in Indian country to say education isn't relevant, the history behind that thinking is uglier still. Today's students and parents are descended from those who attended boarding schools where expression of traditional culture was forbidden, sometimes by means of violent force.
Trying to learn our language when our father was a boarding school, and it just was basically beat out of him.
Just the mere fact that our culture has survived, we're here, is a testament to our endurance and our ability to adapt.
Still, finding a place for that culture in school has been challenging, especially in an era when uniform standards squeeze out other learning options.
Because of No Child Left Behind, schools have to concentrate on the testing and, on the attendance, and maybe this would help if they could maybe go back and concentrate a little bit on making students feel comfortable just coming to school, especially on the reservations.
If we need help with learning about our own culture, then we should be able to ask for that help, because that was something that was taken from us and it was not our fault. And yet somehow we're so afraid to ask for help.
A key to understanding this culture in all its depth is making certain the Lakota language survives.
Every day, as our elders age and our fluent speakers age, is a serious condition for our tribe.
If the language is to survive, and there can be no denying that it is at risk, schools must play a leading role.
Math, reading, and all of these are really required by the state, and Lakota language isn't part of it, isn't on there.
To Paul's thinking, that sets up an unfortunate irony.
When you want to apply for a Lakota language job, and it isn't required at the state level, why do you even need a certificate to teach that?
At the same time, though, Indian country educators see progress at the state level through a set of standards related to Native cultures called Essential Understanding.
Probably one of the most important things that South Dakota has ever done since the actual authorization of the Department of Indian Education in the state office, and I'm very proud of that. So I want to be recognized as that, for our state to have that recognition that there are movements here.
The national movement to hold all schools accountable and to narrow achievement gaps has complicated efforts to make Lakota language and culture part of the school day. Still, the effort moves forward.
We've had those conversations about really working to raise the achievement gap, but making it appropriate for the types of cultures and language.
Once you get a family that feels comfortable with the school, that's going to be passed on. If you look at long range.
Just a glance at many reservation schools reveals the need for increased investment. Underfunded schools contribute to a debilitating sense of overpowering poverty.
Anytime you're going to find a level of high poverty, you're going to find the types of problems that we have here. There are In every community, even the most affluent ones, you're going to have the same social issues, but poverty is a multiplier.
Communities where there's not a lot of resources, you know, and not a lot of money to go around, not a lot of jobs, you know, a lot of things become very political. And so, you know, just like in all communities, you know, school environments become that bridge to other political places.
There's some talk in Indian country about dollars lost through perceived Bureau of Indian Education inefficiency. Further, there's frustration that Bureau of Indian Education funding has come with strings attached.
I feel the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and I know this is due to accountability, regs, rules, blah, 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 but I still think they're over extreme in their mini management. We talk of grant schools, you talk of contract, you talk of self-determination. That's the reason the tribes went grant or contract with their schools, because they want self-determination.
Self-determination, the notion that only local decision-making will improve education in Indian country, runs deep, expressed even by students.
These people in Washington live in Washington, right? And they're making policies down here. The res isn't anything like it is out there. Like, I'm sure there's so many worse things out there in this country, but the res is very unique. And to make policies for that, you need to come live down here. You need to come see what we see.
Something everyone sees here is the need for quality local careers.
We're really looking at going to a career tech model for high school. My dream, and if I live that long, is that when kids walk across our stage, they get a diploma, but they get something else, whether it's credits to be parapros, whether they've got additional college credits, or endorsements as to work at the hospital. You look at our main employers as the hospital, the tribe, and the school district. So if they can get some groundwork with being an electrician or welders or carpentry.
But sadly, the current trend to very publicly rank schools by standardized test scores usually cast Indian country education in a bad light.
Had kids didn't want to go on field trips out of town because they didn't want anybody to see the name on our bus, because Dr. Heiner, everybody knows we're dumb. A journalist out of Sioux Falls that always wants comments of, you know, what's happening in Indian country. And finally, last year I told him, I said, why don't you come down and spend a couple days with us? I said, you write all this stuff in a paragraph here and a paragraph there, and we're low achieving here and we're persistently low achieving there. I said, but you've never been to the reservation. He hasn't called me since, but you know, I invite anyone to come and walk around with us for a day and see the exciting things we do. I like the flexibility that they're putting into the law now that allows us to do some growth model, because we've shown our kids grow. You know, we've got awesome people. You know, I've got people that put in hours and hours and hours here, and you don't see it in test scores, but you see it in the relationships they've built.